Hi, Dr. Mary Claire.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having us on this amazing menopause retreat cruise. Are
I'm
you
still
having a
in
good time?
shock. I'm just in shock, like how amazing everything has been. You know, the information, the actionable items, I think that the participants are walking away with a checklist of how they want to approach aging and menopause, in a very positive way.
I think the program's been amazing, and I've been kind of surprised, although not surprised because it's fascinating, but to see how many people are like taking notes and really taking, action items away and information. And when we eat dinner or talk to other people on the cruise, they're all learning so much. The thing that's really surprising me the most is the tears. Whenever there's a moment of recognition, you look around the room and so many women are like,
It's the validation. I mean, this is the thing that, moving into my own menopause and starting to talk about it on social media was the thousands and thousands of comments of women who are like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. Like, this is me. Like, this makes sense. This makes sense. Not that I can tell them how to fix it, if it's vertigo or tinnitus, but it's that they're like, okay, this is part of my menopause and we're going to figure out how to get around this. But like forever, because we're not sharing all of this information, there's not like a menopause network that people are paying attention to. And so at least in healthcare, and that, all of these symptoms are connected in so many ways. And there's this stuff that we can do about it. So yeah, the tears are, that was me. And now I have options, and I understand a lot better.
At Alloy, we've been so amazed and overwhelmed, but encouraged by all the women who are coming out and saying they need this. The need is so great. So how did you decide to, well, first, what has changed between when you came out with the Galveston Diet and your new book?
So kind of my toe in the water of social media was starting to talk about what was the big pain point for myself and my patients was weight gain, unexplained weight gain during menopause, especially in the midsection. And when I went back to school at Tulane to get certified in culinary medicine, I was just astounded by how much about nutrition that I didn't know and how important it was, and all about visceral fat and what metabolic, how it's tied to most metabolic diseases. And women in menopause, it's an independent risk factor for new onset, visceral fat accumulation, and how much muscle we're losing. I mean, all of that just blew my mind. We never learned any of that in our residency and our medical schools. And so talking about that on social media and tying it to menopause is kind of how I started growing. People were like, oh my God, wait, it's not because I'm fat and lazy, I'm trying and it's not working anymore. And so I'm like, no, actually the hormones are affecting this and this is driving this here and your inflammation's going up, and that conversation exploded. But as I said the word menopause, people were like, she's talking about menopause. Okay, tell me more about that. Like, and what about hormones? And what about hormone therapy? And what about, and so that's really the toe in the water was the conversation around nutrition and weight gain, but it just exploded into a giant umbrella of every organ system in our body and how menopause can affect it.
So I can't wait for your new book. We're so excited about spreading the word about menopause in general. I think all of us, we Alloy kind of came up at the same time you were coming up. This is all sort of a post-2020 pandemic moment. But do you think that all of us who are out there, you especially on social media, speaking about menopause, are making a dent with the 55 million women out there who are of menopausal age?
Here's the growth of my social media, and again, it is a vanity measure. Of course, my little ego is like, oh wow, almost 1 million followers on Instagram. But really, it's the engagement. It is the amount of comments, the DMs, the emails we get. People just like, thank you so much. You've really helped me. You allowed me to find a healthcare provider who would listen to me and understand my symptoms and give me, the option of hormone therapy or just some kind of a plan to get through this, rather than this is just part of getting old and you're stuck with it. I mean, here's the number I want everyone to take home. We live longer than men, sure. Okay, we know that. But we're going to spend 25% of our entire life in poor health. Okay, and when you look at the time in poor health, we spend 20% more of our lives, more than men. So they live shorter lives, but they're healthier and happier. Mm-hmm. And yesterday in the conference, the story was told about Queen Elizabeth and how she met with the prime minister and went to bed and died. And I was like, yes, please. Dr. Von der Wright told that story. I'm like, that is, that takes work. And putting in, the nutrition, the exercise, understanding what's happening with our bodies, hormones, if you're a great candidate, like how that all fits together so that we can live better lives, more fulfilled lives, and not be plagued with chronic disease. That's the message.
What do you still think about all the negativity around HRT, the WHI hormonal therapy for menopausal women?
We've had an entire generation of this, and it's a big ship to course correct, changing the entire mentality of the entire medical profession, basically.
Yeah.
And you do it one doctor at a time, one nurse at a time, and like I'm doing everything I can to spread that message that for almost everyone, hormone therapy is a safe option that is going to decrease your risk of chronic disease and improve the quality of your life and help your hot flashes. But our menopause is so much more than just a hot flash, and I'm so sick of defining menopause by that. It is a cataclysmic hormonal change, that affects our brains, our bones, our every single organ system can be affected, and that we can intervene. And we have options. Everything else to do with aging, we have treatments for. Right. Hypertension, cardiovascular disease. We fight for our health, but why is this one so taboo, so ignored, so steeped in, I'm sorry, but misogyny and some paternalism, and the female physicians are just as bad as the male.
I think also there's a little female on female crime a little bit too in terms of judging and shame.
Like I did it this way, therefore your way is not right. And I'm like, you know what? I just want everybody to be their best self and live their best life, and provide them with tools to make that happen.
I think there was a really great message yesterday overall that this is part of your aging toolkit, and hormones are a really big piece of it, and that they'll help you have a longer health span. But I also loved all the other tools like the workout that we did and the conversation about nutrition. Can you share with us, I know when we met, I don't know how many years ago on TikTok Live, I said listen, I can't do the black coffee. I can't do the black coffee with the Galveston Diet. Well, guess what? Now I can. So you've really changed my life as well. But are you still following a lot of your protocol? What could you mind take us through a day?
I still am a faster. So Galveston Diet has 3 prongs of what we suggest, and they're all centered around lowering inflammation. So it's not really a weight loss program. Diet and medicine, and if I could do anything different, it would be not to have called it a diet, but I'm stuck with it. So diet and medicine is a pattern of eating, right? And I was thinking like Mediterranean diet, which has great data, and we're very, very similar to Mediterranean. The reason why it works, they've actually studied Mediterranean in postmenopausal patients, looked at all the biochemistry, saw, did the math, and it works because of the flavonols and the anti-inflammatory components naturally found in food. And so fasting actually lowers inflammation. It's not a great way to lose weight. You can undo all of the good of fasting in that eating window that you pick. Yeah. And so, fasting's not for everyone. If it triggers ED or, your lifestyle, it's fine, but it's just one of the tools. The second is really focusing on loading up your plate with things that we know fight inflammation. One thing that I've done differently now, and when I do a new version of the book, my editor's going to die when she hears me say that, is we need more protein. And so the original book, I was focusing on the pain point, which was the weight gain. And so I was looking, lose fat, instead of focusing on what my mantra is now is strong over skinny, get strong. And so I'm encouraging now my patients, anyone who listens to me on social knows, I'm like, we probably need more protein, and here's how you can figure that out based on your body weight and your muscle mass, et cetera.
I loved all of the conversation yours and Dr. Von der Wright's yesterday about staying strong and becoming strong and strong over skinny. What do you do in your personal workout?
So I'm doing a lot more lifting than I used to. I was a cardio queen. It was all about being skinny, and so I love to dance, So I have a group class that I go to where we dance, but we also have weights. And so I do that. That's more for me to be with my girlfriends and hang out with my community. I've been so busy lately that I mostly work out at home because of travel and everything. So I've got, I do a lot of work on my treadmill. So I've turned my treadmill into a walking desk.
Oh, brilliant.
So because I used to have a very active job at the hospital where I was running around, delivering babies, clinic, all that stuff, I rarely sat. I stood to talk to my patients because they only give us 18 seconds to see them and, in a traditional practice, and I didn't have time to sit. So now I have a job where I sit and talk to patients for an hour, or I sit and research, or I sit and whatever. I'm like, I'm sitting too much, and so I need to get up and move. So I saw a lady on TikTok who turned her treadmill into a walking desk, and I was like, I can do that.
Love that.
And then I wear my weighted vest as much as I can.
Do you wear the weighted vest on the treadmill?
On the treadmill, yeah. So I'm taking Zoom calls, walking, not talking to patients. So I see my patients in person.
Oh, right.
So yeah, I'm in like a cute outfit.
Right.
So
Alloy Digital Health, we do it over the computer, but yes, you're in person.
I think that would freak out the patient. But I take Zoom calls for the other half of my life, which is running the Pause Life. In my weighted vest while I'm on the treadmill. I read research on my treadmill. I take notes very slowly, but while I'm on my treadmill. So, and then I lift weights and I try to lift heavy. And so I have little trackers. I like Beachbody. I have little videos that I do. I have little workouts I've created. I kind of mix it up a little bit.
That's great. You had such a great presentation yesterday about what you would tell your 35-year-old self. Can you give us like the top 3 kind of, or however many you want, but I know you can't do the whole presentation. And,
So nutrition over calories. We're missing the boat there. We come from this, Gen X, calories in, calories out. Calories are important. If I ate 6,000 calories a day, I would put on fat in places I was not happy with, right? But, the pure, like, unadulterated, like, drive to count calories was what I was brought up with and what I was taught in medical school. Like, we weren't, we knew about scurvy and, these rare kwashiorkor, we didn't learn about basic nutrition. In OB-GYN, the only time I saw a meal plan was for our diabetics, and it had been Xerox from like 1976. And it was so light purple you could barely read it. And that was here, you're pregnant, you have gestational diabetes, here you go. Limit your tortillas.
I'm laughing, but that's
it's
crazy.
like literally this was it. And so I think that registered dietitians are the most underutilized, unsung heroes. They know so much. My daughter went to undergrad originally intending to get her RD, which is like a master's in internship. So, but she finished her nutrition science undergrad and applied to med school and got in. So.
Well, she's going to be an amazing doctor.
So she's got that solid. And talk about when you're writing a diet book, having a daughter who's super critical of you, like double checking and looking for articles to like make sure I'm staying, within guidelines and stuff. So.
Okay, so top line from what I would tell my 35-year-old self, there was the nutrition.
Yeah, nutrition over calories, strong over skinny. We move our bodies to be strong, not to be thin. And so changing that focus. We need cardio for our hearts, right? But we probably need a lot less cardio than we thought. And we need to be doing resistance training as much as possible or otherwise we're losing bone strength, we're losing muscle strength. And we can slow that rate down or even build, with the right amount of protein and resistance training. And probably some help from hormones as well.
Oh yeah, hormones. Gotta love them. Would you mind sharing a little bit about the personal piece of your presentation and what in your life led you to sort of have this change of attitude?
My own menopause, but so I have 6 brothers and 1 sister. I come from this ginormous Cajun family, the coloring, And so my oldest brother, so my mom had 4 boys in 5 years, like just.
Wow.
And then took a break. Had me 3.5 years later, had my sister, and then another big break, and then back to back had 2 more boys in her 40s. So she had perimenopausal babies at 41 and 43.
Do you think they were a surprise?
And then she got a magical hysterectomy, which was Cajun birth control at the time. So she probably had horrific prolapse, but it needed to go. So my oldest brother was diagnosed with leukemia when he was 5. So mom was pregnant with her 4th child, had 2 toddlers, and her 5-year-old son had ALL, which at the time was 95% lethal. Now that number's down in the like 1%, 2, maybe 5. And so he was one of the first patients at St. Jude's, and they fought to keep him alive while she's pregnant, and my dad's got a business, and grandmas are going up to Memphis to take him, and so he went into remission, and then we kind of forgot about it. He was great. He was healthy, and they had more kids. And then when he was 17, he relapsed. And so like that was 7 and 8 years old, 9 years old when he died. And so that whole relapse and that long slog to try to get him back into remission just never happened. And then that really, my family took a huge hit from that. Like my parents, So then fast forward, to 2015. So my brother, the next brother down was Bob. So Bob had a lifetime partner, 35 years, Bob and Randy, and they had this awesome life. He was the best uncle to my daughters. You can't even imagine the princess tea parties and the, tutus and all the things. He was just magical with them. And we were super close. And so he had contracted HIV probably 10 years before he died, and also hepatitis probably at the same time. And he did really well with the HIV, but the hepatitis just, and he was not a candidate for the liver transplant. And he had struggles with alcohol as well. So living through that with him, and then so we lost him in 2015. Right as I was discovering I was menopausal, I had stopped birth control and said, okay, let's see where I'm at. I'm 48, 49, it's gonna be close, let's see. And then I kind of rushed home to help take care of him. My sister was a hospice nurse at the time, and we did his end-of-life care together, House full of people, music going, and, he died surrounded by everybody, but I lost my mind after he died. And so went into a pretty deep depression and still had to work and be a mom and wife and all the things. And was menopausal, but I was so thinking this is grief, the lack of sleep, the hot flash, just I felt horrible, the brain fog, and I just, and then I realized after about 6 months, I'm like, I'm not so sad anymore about him. It's like passing, but I'm still feeling horrible here. When was my last period? So I was like, oh my God, I'm in menopause. And immediately I felt like an old lady. Like I had I had never come to terms with that term. And I had such a negative connotation about that this was the end.
All do, yeah.
Oh my God, remember that Sex in the City episode when Samantha thought she was menopausal and was like, I'm old and no. And then she started a period and it was like a party. And and so I'm like, oh my God, that was me going into menopause, well, this is it,
And you weren't on
and then
any
I did
hormones at the
not
time.
want HRT. I was scared of it. I didn't know that the WHO, ABOG and ACOG, American Board and American College of OB-GYN, were not putting those, I did my articles every year for my recertification, and there was nothing about, we've looked at this again, we're walking back these studies. There's been multiple studies that have shown how safe and efficacious hormone therapy really is. And I was like, whoa. And so at the same time, I'm developing the nutrition plan. I'm gaining weight. I get my menopause under control. I'm starting to talk about patients. And then I'm getting into the menoverse, what I call.
Love that term.
And I'm finding Corinne, and I'm finding Corinne Men, one of your, and I'm finding all these other doctors who are talking about menopause. And so I get invited to this conference, and I met Avram Blooming, and I was like, oh my God! I sat there and cried like a baby in New York when I saw that man talk. And he and Carol Tarvis, actually, she's fantastic. And so if they don't know, they wrote Estrogen Matters together, and I literally, it rocked my world, And I know how long it takes. It's a glacial pace for societies to change formats because they want to get everything right. I get it. But I'm not willing to let my patients suffer while I wait for those organizations and societies to get over egos to change the recommendations.
And then get that information into medical
but thank
schools.
God,
And get those
NAMS
doctors.
changed it in 2022, so they got on board, And so, so when I was starting to widely recommend HRT and prescribe it, the recommendation still said the lowest amount for the shortest time possible. And I felt like I was breaking the law, but I saw the data. I knew the numbers. I knew that those studies had been walked back.
Yeah.
And it's really hard when you're so classically trained and have always followed the rules and dotted the I's and T's to oh my God, I'm going to do something, but the North American Menopause Society doesn't recommend it. And but I knew it was coming.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it was scary.
Yeah.
Scary for me. But I was telling the patients here are the studies, and they're like, I trust you.
Yeah.
And I got more clear on the information, every new study coming out. And then when the American Heart Association, it's embarrassing, American Board and American College didn't write that article, that the cardiologists did it. And they went back and looked at the WHI as far as cardiology, and were like, hey, guess what? If you start hormone therapy, you're much less likely to die of heart disease.
Which is amazing because that was actually the point of the WHI, was they wanted to prove
If
that.
we have a window of opportunity here, to prevent cardiac death. And then the second thing was, guess what, ladies? Statins don't help.
Crazy.
Statins will lower your cholesterol, but you still have the exact same chance it'll help in a man,
Crazy.
but not in a woman, because we're not little men. So It's a very long answer to a convoluted answer.
Well,
to
this is
your
all. There's so much information that needs to get out there,
question.
and that was so. Listening to Avram Blooming speak at an Estrogen Matters event before we even started Alloy is the reason that we started figuring out how to sell hormones to with doctors and following the right guidelines online, because it was revolutionary. And at the time, people were like, "Wow, what you're doing is so revolutionary," and we were like, this is literally the longest studied, safest. Like if you look at all the data, which in the right, it's a long story, but that he changed our lives as well. It's just unbelievable. But your personal story is really empowering for a lot of us, because I think there is something else about, regardless of what tragedies you've been through, what your family's gone through, but there's something about this time of life. I love that you call it the Menoverse, because it has the connotation that we're all superheroes, right? Like it's kind of like, and we are. There's something that happens to all of us, with or without. Everyone has a different story. That you feel like you kind of have a superpower. Like around 50, you kind of turn around, and I did anyway. And like, I want to be intentional about my life. I feel empowered. I want to do things that matter to me. I don't know how much time I have left. My mom died too young, and I had this like, I've got to grab life by the balls.
That's and my brother, his death, and then I lost another brother 2 or 5 years later, and then my dad died of COPD. So and they were 9 months apart, and I was like, tick-tock, like I'm about to outlive 3 of my brothers,
Crazy.
and I am 55 years old. Yeah. And so I don't know if I'm going to watch my girls have babies or whatever they want to do with their lives, no pressure, Catherine and Madeline, and I want to watch them be the women they're meant to become. Like that's such a part of my life, that joy. I want to climb mountains at 80. I don't want to be frail. I want to kick ass. I want to keep teaching. I want every woman to feel the way I feel right now, and taking menopause care, modern menopause care, off the table for them, which is happening. We are not trained in this.
Yeah, no, crazy.
There's such, this is a systemic problem. It is not one doctor's fault. They're not trained. And literally, I don't know, in the American healthcare system, it is broken, and it is not built to serve the menopausal woman. The doctors are working their butts off to stay afloat. Okay, so we have a problem with they weren't trained or taught. They're not being put, the new information about menopause is not put in front of them as part of their yearly recertification. That is the crazy thing. They are not, and then they're under so much pressure to do, OB-GYNs are paid to do procedures. Right. I mean, that's where you make your money, is delivering babies and surgeries.
Which all needs to be done, by the way. There aren't enough doctors delivering babies even.
So it's like I think it's going to take a generation before we get this next crop of students and residents up, fully trained in menopause care. I think it's going to be its own specialty, and it's going to be, you're kind of a, you have to be a little bit of a cardiologist and a little bit of a, orthopedic surgeon. I'm pointing to Dr. Right back there. You have to be able to talk about these things, because menopause is not in isolation. It's not just our uterus and the ovarian failure, let's call it what it is, that we all go through. Our endocrine system is aging twice as fast as anything else in our body, and our ovarian endocrine system. And that failure, signifies a dramatic change for the rest of our lives, and we can intervene and live better.
Well, you almost just answered my last question, which is, how do you think menopause care will look for your daughters, my 17-year-old daughter?
So my daughter she's in medical school, so she's like, I think we'll be wearing, I have my CGM on. I think that, we'll have some kind of a monitoring system so we can start seeing, disruptions in the force, as I call it, and that you'll be keyed in right away. And we'll have lots of studies that have been done in perimenopausal women and helping her navigate this, with hormone therapy, without nutrition, this is not menopause is not going to be this dramatic change. We'll just stay on the same aging path, and I think we'll live a lot longer.
That is beautiful, and you're leading the charge. Alloy is here to help. I mean, this is a really exciting, it does feel like we're starting a revolution.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.